Joining us now, McKay. She's a geopolitical research director, also international and foreign analyst. Holly, thank you very much for joining us this morning. So as you well know, the president, he's set to be at this World Economic Forum. At the same time, many EU officials there have said these tariff threats undermine NATO unity. The expectation, though, is that he's going to be doubling down on these threats. Do you agree? And there are talks now of retaliatory measures. How do you see these leaders responding?
Well, this is certainly unprecedented territory. On the one hand, I certainly see Washington's desire to have control of Greenland. Its Arctic position does make it a very pivotal national security place, especially for China and Russia encroachments. However, going after allies and trying to obtain land is certainly something we've never seen before. I do think that, at least initially, from everything I'm seeing from EU leaders, is that they're still very open to negotiating this, and that's certainly their first preference ahead of any sort of retaliatory measures. However, as time goes on, if no negotiation can be reached, I do think that this is going to be a very dangerous water for NATO to be wading into and potentially make the region more dangerous rather than more safe.
Right. And the president appears to suggest that that's his first want as well in all of this, is to make a deal before any escalation. You know, our NATO alliance, that's been a top concern in these conversations. The president's making the argument, though, that it's NATO failing to address real threats coming from Russia and China, and therefore the U.S. needs Greenland as a strategic advantage to protect NATO. How is that line of thinking being received?
I think that is entirely accurate. Russia and China don't have a presence on the island itself. Yes, they are in the region, but when you look sort of at the map, you're seeing that Russia is, particularly close. This is right in their backyard. And also, let's not forget that the U.S. does have a very large airbase. The Thule Air Base is there. And so we do have, a very strong ability to strike and to gather intelligence in that region. And I'm sure with negotiations, that's something the U.S. would potentially want to increase their footprint rather than having to resort to the measures of taking over the entire island.
Right. And what is your risk to reward calculus in all of this? These are some bold statements coming from the president. How do you see it?
I'm certainly seeing a lot more risk than I'm seeing reward right now. And that could even come back to the wallets of Americans if this sort of tit for tat tariff war etches up. And again, I'm not seeing a huge advantage. These are allies that are in control of this region. The U.S. has a huge amount of influence in that region and on our allies. And taking entire control of the island, I don't see that necessarily changing the national security equation in any dramatic fashion.
Right. And we're taking a live look at the Danish foreign minister there, obviously stands against the president's threats and all of this. You know, aside from some of the effects of these retaliatory tariffs that have been talked about, what that would look like, how do you feel about any of these other countries potentially aligning with our adversaries? That's been another concern in all of this. What is going to be the play when we talk about foreign relations? Do you see that as a possibility, whether these countries do this intentionally or unintentionally?
I certainly don't see the European nations aligning with Russia or China intentionally, but it certainly could be a side effect of what happens if this NATO rift deepens. And I can certainly tell you that in the Kremlin, they are very much enjoying this rift that is happening right now. So just that in itself, really puts NATO in a precarious position rather than the position of strength, which is what leaders, I think, want to project.
Right. Well, we will certainly see how this one plays out. Be following the forum closely. Holly McKay, thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.